Southern Cal, Texas, Clemson, Miami, Syracuse, and more. Lots of commitments to talk about on the Portal Podcast.
Locked On presents The Portal, the daily podcast covering college football recruiting and everything NIL. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome back into the Portal Podcast, where you get your daily recruiting, NIL, and transfer portal news. I'm your host, Brian Smith, longtime college football recruiting analyst and writer. Thank you for making the Portal Podcast your first stop each day to get all the latest happenings in the college football recruiting world. We're going to be talking about the commitments from this weekend. There were some pretty interesting commits, and there's a couple of trends that are interesting as well. I'll get to that in the second part of the show, but let's just talk about the commitments in general to begin. Talented players from all over the country making decisions from Saturday till now. So first guy I want to talk about, and this is kind of a credit to the program and how they've changed things, that would be the Southern Cal Trojans. Their defensive line haul so far is probably the best in the country. They've got 5 guys in the fold. Malik Brooks is the latest. He's a local kid from the greater Los Angeles area. And anytime you can get nose guards or 3 techs or guys that can play both spots, you're helping yourself long-term. Malik Brooks is listed at 330 pounds, and he plays at St. Pius X in St. Pius X, St. Matthews in Downey. This is a program that I don't know a ton about. I don't know if it's a school that's on the rise or whatever, but he's a kid that everybody's going to come after. He had offers from all kinds of programs, and he's 300 plus pounds at the nose spot. Now he needs some work, but you can't teach the size and the strength that he has. I don't think there's any way that USC fans are going to be disappointed, considering how their defense has been the albatross for them for a number of years. And they improved last year, but they still couldn't get it done in the run defense in key games towards the end of the season. That, the Notre Dame game, et cetera, they had a chance, but they got ran on too much. This is how you change that. Again, he is the 5th defensive lineman that they've gotten committed, and several of these guys are really, really good. They need more anchors in particular, though, and so they don't have to jump into the portal. So hats off to Lincoln Riley and everybody on their staff for getting a good football player and keeping another guy home. That's kind of been a trend. Another kid that probably isn't going to get the respect he deserves, so I'm going to jump on him second, and the school probably doesn't grab as much attention, but speed never goes out of style, especially Florida speed. And Georgia Tech used to get a lot of kids out of the Sunshine State. They don't as often anymore, but this is a good player. Wadarius Crumity, he can really run. This is a corner that's just under 6 foot. And I don't know what it is about some of the rural schools in Florida. These kids are always just really, really motivated. And this is a kid that can run with anybody. Does he have enough weight and all those kind of things? I never worry about that with Florida kids. Most of Florida guys are undersized in terms of weight coming out of high school. He's listed at 160. I don't even know if he was that big last year, but whatever. Doesn't matter. He's also from Madison County, which that's a great football program, not that far from Tallahassee. Good pickup for Georgia Tech. This is the second corner they've gotten, and this is a player that probably has a chance to play early if he continues to develop. The speed can't be replicated. Either you have it or you don't. And he's a guy that, again, comes from a program that's good, from an area where the kids were always hungry for more. So hats off for Georgia Tech for going after him. A lot of people bypass some of the schools up in the Panhandle, Tallahassee area, and they shouldn't. So hats off to them. Next up, another kid from North Florida, and a player that probably has been overlooked a little bit. Maybe he's a little raw, 6'2", 6'3", so the length is certainly there. Elijah Keys out of Fletcher, Jacksonville, Florida. He's committed to UCF. This is a young man that not everybody knows enough about, apparently, because when I was looking at his offer list, he doesn't have a ton of major offers or anything like that. But when Scott Frost was at UCF the first round, these are the kind of kids that he often signed on either offense or defense to get the program going. It was about development. Sign Florida speed, find the right spot for them, strength and conditioning program improves them, and then they learn the techniques and the playbook over time. Second, third year, they're starting in their major factors. That's what UCF did. Maybe this is the same approach Scott's going to go with again, because, again, Elijah Keys doesn't have all the offers you would want, but the length and the size for corner, you can't teach it. That's a big-time get for them in terms of what they're trying to do to stay inside the state and bring more kids home. They did that the last time Scott Frost was there. We'll see if he can do it again. Sticking in Florida yet again, Joel Irvin out of Fort Myers High School has flipped from Louisville, decommitted, and now to Miami. It was trending that way. I talked about it not that long ago, social media, etc. This is a young man that I think's got a lot of upside. He was a pretty darn good player when I watched him on film, but I look at it from a perspective of he could play tackle, he could play guard. He's a multiple guy. That really fits Alex Mirabal, the O-line coach at Miami. He cross-trains his guys quite a bit, and he's one of the better O-line coaches in college football, no doubt. They're going to keep one home. I know he's ranked a 3-star by some of the services, but I don't put a lot of stock on that, especially with O-linemen. Joel Irvin can play. We just haven't seen him a lot on the camp circuit and all these different places. He's not going to be out there quite as much. Southwest Florida kids don't usually travel as often, but Fort Myers High's got a good program, and his film's consistent. Got good flexibility and bend. He'll end up playing for Miami and probably starting for a couple of years. Moving on, there's a kid that I don't know if enough people know it about him. I know I've talked about him on this show, but this is the surprise for me. How in the world do you allow Cameron Wilson out of the state of Florida if you're UCF, Miami, Florida, and Florida State? Cameron Wilson's at Southridge High School. He had a good visit to Florida State. Looks like they were trending in the right direction. Now, all of a sudden, Syracuse gets him to commit. He had been planning to go up there again and all that. And I don't care if he did or didn't take 10 unofficial visits to upstate New York. It's still upstate New York. All 4 of the in-state schools that are now in the P4, this is the kind of kid that has left the state and that has later on become a starter at that program. And the Florida schools are like, we should have taken it. We should have went after him more. I don't think Miami's really recruiting him. I don't think Florida is either. Maybe UCF and Florida State will continue. They've recruited him, but they still let him out of the state. He's committed now to Syracuse. Cameron Wilson is a natural pass rusher. 6'4", 210 pounds, great kid. He's really improved his technique over the last year from his junior film just to now, just a few months, honestly. He's showing the ability to change up what he does from play to play, whether it's in a 5-on-5 competition, Under Armour, etc. He's gotten better. This is the kind of kid that Bowden, Spurrier, all these different coaches that in the 80s and 90s got the programs rolling inside the state of Florida. This is the kind of kid they took and redshirt freshman. He plays some, and as a redshirt sophomore, he's a menace. That's kind of what I expect out of Cameron Wilson when he goes to Syracuse. He'll play a little bit early on because Syracuse needs edge rushers, but I don't think this is a guy that's going to come in and start necessarily. Again, he needs to add some weight. He's got a little more development, but you can't teach the hunger that he has. Great kid, and the length. It's so surprising to me to see, again, a kid like this leaving the state of Florida, but we'll see what happens. Maybe they come after him some more. It's certainly possible. Kentucky picks up Jarvis Strickland, interior offensive lineman from Paducah, Kentucky. Big dude, 295 pounds. They need to get better on the trenches on the offensive side. Defense, Kentucky's actually been pretty good up front, but their offensive line needed some size. They went out and got a local kid, and that's what you should do. He's a 4-star on 24/7. I have not seen him yet, but that's a pretty good pickup. Also, just want to make a quick note here. Overall, with recruiting, we're going to see several commitments over the next couple of weeks with these unofficial visits. This was the beginning of it, and I don't think you're going to even remotely get to the point where it's just going to be 1 or 2 a day. It's going to be more. You're going to see 4 and 5 guys committed all over the country. It's a little more southern over the weekend, but you're going to see it California. You're going to see it up north. All these unofficial visits are going to line up to end up in commitments. When we come back, we're going to talk about quarterback recruiting. I was at Elite 11 Atlanta. Going to go over that a little bit. And also, Bowe Bentley names his final 3. There's a little bit of a surprise there. That is next here on the Portal Podcast. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when you win your first $5 bet on FanDuel. That's $200 extra bucks to use on everything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories and even more for who's cutting down the nets. Of course, we're to the Final Four. We got Houston, we got Florida, we got Auburn, we got Duke. There are no more Cinderellas out of that group, but there is a Cinderella side to this if you're going to be placing any kind of a bet on it. Here's the deal. What's the halftime score going to be? Who's going to come out and shoot red hot from behind the line? I like 3-point shooters. That's what I did when I was a kid. I certainly couldn't do anything else on a basketball court very well. Who's going to be the guy that gets red hot? point total, maybe the number of threes. There's a lot of prop bets you could do. It's easy and fast on the FanDuel app, so check it out. Visit FanDuel.com and get in on the college hoop action in the Final Four. Quarterback recruiting is always the biggest thing in this industry because it's the most important position. To that point, the more I watch Bowe Bentley, the more I liked his upside. Consider the following. Out of Salina, Texas, just outside of Dallas, tradition-rich program that has gotten a little bit bigger as people grow towards the suburbs of Dallas, etc. The school's gotten bigger, but they're still just as successful. His first year starting was last season as a junior, and he went off. Not just running the football, not just passing the football, but he was clutch. In the playoffs, he was the reason that Salina not only orchestrated wins and got the title, but he was that third down guy. He understood the management of the situation, and he understood how to win games no matter who they were playing. That's unusual for a first-year starter. I don't care which level it is, high school, college, or pro. And his number of touchdowns and yards were through the roof too. 40-some touchdowns, over 5,000 yards, or just over 4,000 yards, just over 50 touchdowns, whatever it was. It was a ton. And he's playing in Texas. So that caught the attention of colleges around the country. It looked like to me that he was going to be a guy that ended up leaving the state. And that's the one thing I got right. But the schools that he ends up with, I don't know what's going on. I haven't talked to him, so I've guessed on this one wrong. I thought Ohio State or Florida State had a pretty good shot. They've been eliminated. Georgia's getting an OB, LSU's getting an OB, and Oklahoma. Oklahoma seems to be the school that's trending for him. This is a guy that I think could, if he has another great season, could push for 5-star status. We'll see. But if you do it 1 year, now you're the hunted. Everybody knows who you are coming after you. He does it again. He could end up on that level. Let's see if he ends up at Oklahoma. That would be a program that could really use him. LSU, obviously, no stranger to quarterback success. And Georgia's a school that's interesting too, because Kirby Smart doesn't normally go after run-pass guys. He's pretty conservative, to put it mildly. In fact, he's probably about as conservative a coach as there is in the P4 level with offense, but they don't have to because they run the ball so well. Special teams and defense are usually so good. But now, looking at Bentley, that tells you something about how good he is. Not only is he a run-pass guy, he's going all the way to Texas to recruit him, and he's getting an OB. That's intriguing. We'll see what happens with Bowe Bentley, but that's a guy I really, really like. Finally here, I just want to talk a little bit more about Elite 11. I gave an update last night on a separate show. You can check that out here on the Portal Podcast, wherever you get them, Spotify, Apple, YouTube, Odyssey, any place you get them. But at the same time that we talk about Bowe Bentley, I want to talk about these guys. Again, just to give them some shout out because they were really good. When you look at some of the quarterbacks around the country this year, there are a ton of guys that can not only throw it, but that can run. Landon Duckworth, I'll just start with him. That doesn't matter which guy I go with here. The young man out of Jackson, Alabama, led his team to a state title, by the way. He's improving, he's learning, and he's a guy that is so naturally gifted, and he's got so much fluidity with how he throws the football. I don't know how good he's going to get long-term. It's a lifelong learning skill to be a quarterback. But the way he moved when he was going against the grain, he's right-handed, and threw to his, when he's going to his left with his right arm, being able to drop the ball down, he made some great throws. He still missed on some, and he can get better. But I thought that was a good sign for me that like his upside is so high. I get why Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss are really coming after him. It's interesting that a kid like that from a town that not many people talk about, it's about an hour from Mobile, but they just produce players, and hats off to that staff or that community for being good. But he's way better than what people probably think, and especially better in terms of his upside. Just needs to clean up some technical stuff, being more consistent with elbow placement and following through, etc. Again, lifelong learning skill. Quarterback is not easy, but I love Landon Duckworth's game. I also want to talk a little bit about Faizon Brandon. Some people have him as the number one player in the country. I get it. Not only is he a guy that makes the same kind of throws, he's very similar to Landon Duckworth, but he's a guy that is just so approachable. I'm going to guarantee you he's committed to Tennessee that the players are going to gravitate towards him in the locker room for the balls. Great kid. He's recruiting players for the balls. He's trying to get Tristan Keys to flip from LSU to Tennessee. He's trying to do anything he can to help his program out. And I mean, you just can't meet a better young man. Duckworth's great too, by the way, just great. And overall, that's what really makes a difference. Like the chemistry in locker rooms now is the most volatile it's ever been because of NIL. Unique calming voices. Both those guys are great. And last, I want to talk about this young man again, Travis Burgess. He has not picked his school, Wisconsin, North Carolina, Auburn. Those are the 3 visits right now he's got set. Could set another. He's not sure, but he plays at Grayson High School just outside Atlanta. Another kid, just really well-spoken. I understand why schools are looking at him. He's coming off a state title as well. Does he have the ability to take a major step forward? Yes. He didn't make the Elite 11 finals yesterday from Atlanta's performance, but he was good, and the arm strength is better than what I thought, and he's got a frame to fill out. I could easily see 225, maybe bigger. It's debatable, but at the same time, I'm not really worried about the long term with that. With these college strength programs coming around, it's not that hard to figure it out. There's going to be somebody that's going to come along, and we're going to figure out what the exact size is for our offense, etc. And this kid listens. He took instruction yesterday very well from the Elite 11 staff, as did Duckworth, as did Brandon. And that's the difference. It's not enough to just be a good player. It's about being an elite listener. When the guys listen and they take the coaching, they get better. I saw all 3 of those guys get better throughout the day with certain things that they did. There were certain moments in the day where they would struggle with the throw, but then they would make it later, or they would learn and go talk to the coach. That's important. Quarterbacks have to be a little bit different than other positions. And again, the locker room for all these guys is going to like them no matter where they end up playing college football. And that's a great sign. I love college football, but when quarterback play is bad, I don't care how good your linemen are, your receivers and all that. Games aren't much fun to watch. So Faizon Brandon, Landon Duckworth, Travis Burgess, those are all great players, and good luck to them in their college careers. Thank you very much for making the Portal Podcast your first listen each and every day. Truly appreciate you stopping in to get all your latest recruiting news. I love doing this podcast, and we're going to be here every day. Check it out. We've got podcasts coming every day. Plus, we got a bunch of shorts on YouTube. I've got a bunch of videos with all these different players from Under Armour, Elite 11, etc. I'm putting together. They'll be coming up. Some will be shorter. The YouTube page is best for that stuff. Obviously, it's a video. I mean, the audio, I can talk through some of it, but the YouTube page, I'd highly recommend. If you want to find it on YouTube and you're always just listening to the podcast, you can just find it at the Portal Podcast. Again, that's at the Portal Podcast. Everybody, have a good day. I will talk to you again soon.